If the Cardinals were inclined to build a World Series contending team, who are some upcoming free agents that they could realistically bring in to push them in the right direction? This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio, and the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and interact with us, and hit that notification button so you know when the new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode being brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So during this offseason, we are going to continue to highlight the work that is done by a lot of talented writers and bloggers around the internet, journalists. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on what the Cardinals should or should not do heading into 2025. But we've got a lot of unanswered questions still. And frankly, most of them, if not all of them, are not going to be addressed or answered again until after the playoffs are done. So that's going to give us a couple of weeks here, some downtime, if you will, to debate, discuss certain things going on with the Cardinals, things that they may or may not do heading into the next season. And I wanted to highlight a couple of write-ups that I've seen recently. So we'll be doing that in the next few episodes, as well as going over other things that happened in 2024. I encourage you to go check out my last episode, which talked about grading manager Ali Marmol and how he did in 2024. Are you pro Ali? Do you think he did a good job? Are you negative on Ali and think he did a bad job? If so, let me know. Go check out that episode and let me know in the comments section, because we are going to recap that one, because, Ali is kind of a hot button for Cardinals fans, because some love him, some hate him, some of them are just like, eh. But, everybody got an opinion on him. So, but I want to also talk about some things that other people might be talking about, just to have some fun content and discuss during this downtime that is going on right now for the Cardinals. So the one that I saw that caught my attention yesterday, and I want to talk about it today, was just because the headline by itself I thought was hilarious. This is Zach Presnell over at Fansided, and the title was 3 free agents the Cardinals could sign that would erase John Mozeliak's stink. I mean, he's not beating around the bush. Not a fan of Mozeliak and moves that he's made. Wants to get rid of whatever foulness is still coming off of John Mozeliak, in his opinion. So creative headline, that's for sure. Zach got me to click on it, definitely. And what Zach delves into here is something that, and I want to be honest about this, that in my opinion is more fantasy than reality, because from everything we've gathered from what we've heard from the Cardinals so far this offseason is they're not really planning to spend money on any premium free agents this year. Okay, I'm not saying that they're not going to go get a couple of guys to fill some holes here and there, but if the goal is to bring the payroll down, which is what we've been told they want to do, signing major free agents is not exactly something that makes a whole lot of sense now, does it? But for content purposes, let's see what Zach has to offer us here, shall we? So I'll have the full article linked in the description and in the show notes. So depending on what you're listening to or what you're watching, it is available. And let's start off with his first choice, and that would be from the Padres. He's going to go with relief pitcher Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott was having a hell of a season with the lowly Marlins this year. Had been good for the last couple of seasons. Was one of the more sought-after bullpen arms at the trade deadline this year, and it was the Padres who ended up getting him in the end and made their bullpen just outstanding. Wasn't enough to get him over the hump as they get beat by the Dodgers, but like I said before, Zach is talking about rebuilding a World Series contending team. So bolstering the bullpen obviously is a good way to go about that. You're seeing the Guardians right now. They're in the ALCS in large part due to the strength of their bullpen and, of course, Jose Ramirez in the middle of their order. So here's what Zach has to say about Tanner Scott. With Helsley being a righty, adding left-handed closer Tanner Scott would make a ton of sense. Scott was one of the best relievers in the game, and he adds an additional aspect as a left-handed pitcher compared to the right-handed Helsley. The issue here is that Scott will have a ton of contenders chasing after him. If the price drives up too high, the Cardinals shouldn't overpay too much for him. They could chase other bullpen options, but adding Scott would be the dream move for their bullpen. Now, there's nothing about Tanner Scott that says he wouldn't fit right in with the Cardinals bullpen. Obviously, that would be fantastic. I mean, imagine what your final innings can look like if you're a Cardinals fan. If you've got Helsley, Tanner Scott, Matthew Liberatore, Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero, some pretty good arms right there to finish off the back end of your bullpen. Not too bad. But as he mentions, price is going to be a problem here. Spotrac has his market value at 4 years and $66 million. So I would not hold my breath unless you want to make yourself pass out for kicks, because that's the money that Ryan Helsley is going to be searching for. It's going to be the money that Ryan Helsley wants after this final arbitration year that he's got. And if we're already talking about the Cardinals not willing to pay their own guy in Ryan Helsley, I find it hard to believe that they're going to pay some outsider that money either. You know, the Cardinals like to keep their own when they can. And they're, for all, anything about Ryan Helsley, there's no really reason why you'd want to let him go other than how much he's going to want. And if the Cardinals aren't willing to invest that kind of money in somebody at the back end of their bullpen, probably not going to spend it on Tanner Scott either. They're just going to find some new arms to do that. So that would be my problem with Tanner Scott, but obviously great player, a lot of talent. And of course we would, if you could get him and make a 1-2 combination of him and Helsley at the back end with those other guys, would make a whole lot of sense on building a World Series championship team. Next on his list, he's going to go the starting pitching route with a very familiar name to Cardinals fans. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Cardinals. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, because you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And they're the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineup stays in, plus even your lineup stay in play even if one of your players, say, gets injured. All right. And you lose out on him. You're like, oh, man. Well, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. So they're the best place to get real money sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. You can play alongside people like Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sean O'Malley. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. So sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. Good or bad, we're always down for a nice discussion, and have had plenty of people talking about a lot of the episodes that we put out this week so far. So get in on the conversation and have your thoughts be heard from everybody in the community. Once again, we're coming through a blog on fansided.com from Zach Presnell, who is with the story is linked in the description for you guys and the show notes. So make sure you guys check it out, give them a click, and go read what the whole story is about. Because I'm not giving you everything. I'm just giving you a little bits and pieces of the things that he has to say, but just to give us a little bit of outside flavor on what some other people are saying and thinking about our St. Louis Cardinals. So next on his free agent wish list is a guy that we are all very much familiar with, and that would be the Dodgers, Jack Flaherty. Now, Jack Flaherty hasn't been with the organization, with the Cardinals, since being traded at the deadline in 2023. He has spent time with 3 clubs since the Cardinals shipped him away. Sent him to the Orioles, then he went to the Tigers, and now he's with the Dodgers. And we always thought Jack would end up back home in Los Angeles, didn't we? Wearing the Dodger blue. It just seemed like something that was inevitable at some point or another. And it ended up coming to fruition at the trade deadline this year when the Tigers traded him there. And then the Tigers go on to still make the playoffs. Imagine if they had not moved Jack Flaherty and kept him as the 1-2 punch with Tarek Skubal, what Detroit might have been able to do in the playoffs then. What they did was very impressive, a very impressive feat by Detroit altogether. But I wonder what difference that would have made. Are they looking back at it like, if we'd only known? They didn't know they were going to go on that crazy run. But overall, Jack set a career record for wins in a season with 13. With a 3.17 ERA, struck out 194 hitters in 162 innings. Just top-notch stuff from Jack. And I've never been somebody who's been like a Jack hater, so to speak. Sometimes it's tough to read his body language when he's out there. It sometimes looks like he's really frustrated with everybody around him. And it's just, it's a vibe that he gives off sometimes. And it rubs some people the wrong way. But we always knew that he had the stuff. It was just getting him back on the field and getting him healthy again. 2023, he finally was healthy. First full season coming back healthy, and now in his second full season where he's healthy from all those injuries that he dealt with as a Cardinal, you're starting to see that dominant Jack Flaherty again. That was the guy that we thought was going to be the future ace of the Cardinals rotation. So far in the playoffs, he is 1-1, 2.92 ERA. Got hit kind of hard by the Padres, but then dominated the Mets in game 1. Again, he looks healthy. He looks confident. And, that's undoubtedly a type of arm that the Cardinals could use, right? I mean, heck, all the teams in Major League Baseball would probably love to have a Jack Flaherty in their rotation right now. Here's what Zach has to say about Captain Jack. He began his career with 122 starts as a member of the Cardinals. St. Louis could run into an issue in re-signing him if Flaherty has any hard feelings about being dealt away. It was Mozeliak who dealt him away in 2023. So for Mozeliak to try to re-sign him 2 years later might not go over so well. Still, the Cardinals need to upgrade their rotation over the aging veterans who have struggled the last 2 years. Flaherty is the perfect pitcher to do that. Now, there was talks this past season where people brought up that, Jack Flaherty would never want to come back to St. Louis, that, he's probably burned the bridge here, that he's probably like, oh, you guys traded me, gave up on me, I wouldn't want to come back. And apparently that's not the case. We learned that during the season where Jack liked certain things that were said online about fans saying he never said that he didn't want to be here or anything like that. And so people took it as that Jack Flaherty holds no ill will toward the Cardinals organization or anyone involved. I think he understood that it was business at the trade deadline. Cardinals weren't going anywhere, gave him a chance to go somewhere and compete in the postseason, which he got to do with the Baltimore Orioles, and then his path was set. A 1-2 punch of Jack Flaherty and Sonny Gray. I mean, obviously, that would be great to go along with Eric Fetty and whatever mix remains of Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz, Michael McGreevy, and Andre Palante. But again, Flaherty, who, he banked on himself by signing just that 1-year deal this past season. He didn't get the deal that he wanted from whoever else was out there and perhaps was trying to give him a couple of more years. He wanted something better. And he banked on himself. Was like, fine, I'll take a 1-year deal. I'll approve it deal. I'll go to the Detroit Tigers. And he has turned everything around. So he's not going to be exactly cheap this offseason. Spot Rack has his market value at 3 years and $61 million. So just over $20 million per, which, to be honest with you, seems a little bit low for Jack Flaherty, in my opinion, because we're not talking about a guy who is, 33, 34 years old, like a Sonny Gray, who just signed a 3-year deal. We're talking about a 29-year-old who should be right in his prime of his career now. And for him to accept only a 3-year offer seems awfully low for me at $61 million per. Personally, if he's willing to do that, then awesome. Awesome. I'd be all over that. I cannot see that happening. I think somebody's going to give him more money than that. And and then the other side of it, it's not that he doesn't like St. Louis or didn't enjoy his time in St. Louis, but I just feel like if I'm Jack Flaherty and I left St. Louis and I found more success outside of that organization, I don't know why I would want to come back to it under the same people too. It's not like there's this new regime of coaches and managers and all of this stuff that he's unfamiliar with. He knows all these people. He knows Ollie and Dusty Blake and John Mozeliak. Like, he's familiar with them. I find it hard to believe that he would want to do that. That would be a decision he would want to do unless he was paid a whole lot more money than anybody else was giving him. And that's another thing that I find hard to believe that the Cardinals are going to do in this particular offseason. But in this fantasy scenario that we're kind of talking about, if the 2024 Jack Flaherty, who is healthy and striking people out, looks really, really good, if that's who you're getting and not the one that dealt with multiple injuries in 2021 and 2022 with the Cardinals, then I think he's very good bang for your buck. So it's just does not seem like something that will probably happen. I know the Dodgers, he looks good in Dodger blue, but the Dodgers got a lot of pitchers coming back too that just have been injured right now. So, Shohei is going to be pitching for him next year, and Yamamoto, and they're going to get Glass now back, and Clayton Kershaw is set to come back again next year, and they've still got some young guys that they want to bring up. So I don't know where Jack Flaherty is going to go next year if he ends up not going back to LA, but somebody will pay for him. Somebody will pay for him. All right, last but not least, that goes to the positional player route and tries to fill the hole that is being left by Paul Goldschmidt. We'll discuss it next on Locked On Cardinals. Guys, you ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? Don't be shy about this. It's time to stop worrying about your performance, and it's time for you to go get Hims so you can feel confident knowing that you'll be able to step up to the plate, so to speak, when it is time for action. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Now, Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. All right, 95% cheaper. Process is 100% online, so there's no need to go schedule and make one of those uncomfortable doctor's visits. It's not something you're probably anxious to talk to somebody face-to-face about. Your medication, all of this is done online, and then your medication is shipped directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. Be sure to check out the Locked On MLB podcast with our buddy Sully, who hosts it, talking about everything that's going on with the playoffs. So he'll talk about just anything you want, to be honest with you. He'll talk baseball. You want to talk movies. You want to talk about TV. He's got you there, too. Sully, a very entertaining character, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Paul Goldschmidt is set to become a free agent this offseason, and although I figured that the Cardinals might try to re-sign him at just a lower price, it has been reported that they will move on altogether from the 37-year-old, ending his tenure with the team, which is not a bad thing. When you're dropping payroll, this is some of the tough decisions you got to make. Again, this is not a personal thing against Paul Goldschmidt. Obviously, everybody loves him. But offensively, Goldie has declined the last couple of seasons since coming out of nowhere to win that NL MVP in 2022. He's always been a very good hitter. We knew he was put in the mid-30s at this point, so things were eventually going to start to regress a little bit. And then he goes bonkers in 2022. You're like, oh my gosh, maybe this guy's shelf life might be a little bit longer than we thought. And then the last 2 years have happened, and it's like, all right, it's time. It's time. And we've discussed multiple scenarios on how to fill the void left by Goldie as far as the lineup, right? Offensively, where we've been talking about different combinations of like Alec Burleson and Luken Baker and Jordan Walker, maybe Ivan Herrera, Matt Carpenter. They might bring him back as a bench bat and he can play first. The logical move seems to be the Burleson, Luken Baker route. It seems to be the logical one to me, where you have one who starts against lefties. You have one that starts against righties. When that person isn't starting, he becomes a very important bench bat for you. I don't see the wrong in that idea. Plus, neither one of them makes a whole lot of money yet. Where I think the Cardinals are going to miss Paul Goldschmidt a lot is defensively. It's a side of Goldie that I think we've taken for granted over the years. And no offense to any of those guys that might take over at first base, but they haven't proven at the major league level that they can hold a candle to what Paul Goldschmidt did defensively at first base. I mean, Goldie was really, really good, you guys. I mean, how many bad throws have we seen him save? Make the pick or make a diving play and keep his toe on the bag, barely. How reliable was he on just ground balls, just your basic stuff that we are always like, well, I mean, he should feel that, right? Well, not everybody does. Not every first baseman does. How about making the toss to pitchers who are covering first base? People screw that up all the time. Rarely saw any issues with that with Goldie. The dude was just really, really good. And if you're going to bring in a free agent to fill the void, what Zach brings up here is not a bad idea. Makes sense to pick up somebody who can do those things just as well, if not better, than Paul Goldschmidt defensively. And that's what Zach does here, talking about Christian Walker, first baseman for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Walker is the guy that eventually took over for Goldie in Arizona when he came over to the Cardinals, took over first base. And what a seamless transition that was for the D-backs, who saw him not only become a big part of their lineup offensively, but also goes on to win 2 Gold Gloves and could win a 3rd consecutive one this year. He's incredible over at first base. So you wouldn't lose if, you went this route and you went and got Christian Walker in free agency. You wouldn't lose a single thing defensively at the position, and you still get a guy who, in a 160-game average, is going to give you like a 250 batting average, hit you close to 30 home runs, 86 to 90 RBIs. The downside, if you look at it, is that he's already 33 years old. So, you're hoping for somebody a little bit younger, I would assume. I mean, obviously, Alec Burleson and Luken Baker are much younger than that. But it also means that he wouldn't command like a long, expensive contract either. So here's what Zach says about Christian Walker. 33-year-old routinely puts up an OPS of 800, doing so in each of his last 3 seasons. Last year, Walker slashed 251, 335, 468 with 26 home runs and 26 doubles. A lot of the bigger teams will likely go after Pete Alonso instead of Walker. Pulling him away from the Diamondbacks would be tough, but the Cardinals are a much bigger market, so they could likely offer him a bit more money. It would certainly be quite the impressive signing to send Mozeliak off in the sunset. Now, Spot Rack does have Walker's market value at a very similar contract to what you're seeing with the first 2 guys we mentioned in this episode. 3 years, $66 million, so just over $22 million per. The thing is, if you are cutting payroll, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, if you weren't cutting payroll, it seems like Walker taking over for Goldie in St. Louis just like he did in Arizona would make a ton of sense. But I just cannot see the Cardinals investing that money that they're saving now from not having Paul Goldschmidt on the roster, making the $20 odd million he was making this year, close to 30, really. I cannot see them just investing it and putting it right back in to the first base position. It just does not seem like a Cardinal thing to do. And when you go down the list of free agent first basemen coming up in 2025, you're headlined by Pete Alonso, who's going to get a bag from somebody. It'd be weird to not see the Mets reach out, considering they have all the resources that the Mets have. It'd be weird to not see him end up with the Mets once again, considering their run here in the postseason. Paul Goldschmidt is there, obviously, but he's old. Then you have Christian Walker. Then you've got Josh Bell, who also ended up in Arizona, the switch hitter that used to be with the Pirates. And then he was Marlins, and he was Guardian. Was he Guardians? I think he was Guardians. I think he was a Padre for a little. Like, he's been around to a couple of different spots. And then it falls down to guys like Carlos Santana and Joey Gallo as your unrestricted free agents. Now, there are a couple other names that have some option stuff to go through, like Anthony Rizzo with the Yankees and stuff like that. But if the Cardinals did feel that they needed, like they didn't trust what was going to happen with Burleson or Baker over at first base, but they're not trying to spend a whole lot of money, I think the signing of the Twins, Carlos Santana, would make a lot more sense in this particular case. Now, here's the downside. Carlos Santana is 38 years old. He's older than Paul Goldschmidt, but defensively, he was a plus 14, outs above average, plus 8 defensive runs saved. I would assume I didn't look at the AL Gold Glove list. I'm assuming he is up for the Gold Glove at first base. I would assume that because his numbers are outstanding. Let me double check on that for you here real quick, just to be sure. Yeah. So it's him, Nathaniel Lau, and Ryan Mountcastle from the Orioles. So, Santana is up there for that. So he obviously very good defensively. He's a switch hitter. Hit 23 home runs, 71 RBIs. It has a market value of 1 year of $5.6 million. And that is where it would make sense, because the reason why letting Paul Goldschmidt go is something that makes sense is because of how much money he was going to make. The qualifying offer had to be like $20-something million. Like, you're not paying $20 million for what Paul Goldschmidt is now. But would you pay $5.6 million for Paul Goldschmidt? Sure, that would make sense. If that's what you can get Carlos Santana for, that would make sense. If the Cardinals felt that they needed to go out and bring somebody in to fill that first base role or DH and whatnot. So $5.6 million, not all that expensive. But personally, I don't see them doing any of that stuff. I think they're going to fill this void internally. I think that is probably going to be the plan. I think if they do spend any free agent money, you'll find that spent on other things, perhaps bullpen, maybe starting rotation, depending on if any deals are made. But I just find it hard to believe that it would be at first base. But let me know your guys' thoughts on what Zach has brought up here. What you think about what I've said about these things. Get your comments down below on YouTube. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter X. I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't followed us yet on Twitter X, you can do that at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.